Ces impérialistes n'ont qu'un seul cliché en tête. L'Afrique est l'empire des esclaves. C'est comme ça qu'ils voient l'Afrique. Pour eux, les Africains les appartiennent. Nos terres les appartiennent. Nos sous-sols les appartiennent. Ils n'ont jamais pu changer de logiciel jusqu'à aujourd'hui. C'est déplorable. Mais comment procèdent-ils? C'est malheureusement depuis donc, ces années 60 où ces simulacres d'indépendance ont été donnés à l'Afrique. Ils n'ont juste fait que placer des valets locaux à la tête, selon eux, de leur sous-préfecture pour pouvoir continuer à les alimenter. Ces valets locaux que nous allons qualifier aujourd'hui d'esclaves de salon n'ont d'autre repère que de chercher à vivre comme le maître, à satisfaire le maître et à faire tout ce que le maître lui dicte. Ils volent, ils pillent nos États, amènent tout chez le maître et leur richesse est conservée chez le maître. Ils font tout pour vivre comme le maître et toujours le satisfaire. Lorsque le maître commande, ils exécutent. Savez-vous qui sont ces esclaves de salon? Eh bien, nous allons vous expliquer ce que c'est. Ce sont des individus qui n'ont aucune dignité, qui n'ont aucune morale, qui n'ont aucune personnalité. Mais le maître esclave a toujours su identifier ces individus. Ils sont toujours prêts à trahir leurs frères pour satisfaire le maître. Ils nous ont trahis depuis l'indépendance et d'autres continuent jusqu'à aujourd'hui à nous trahir au profit de leur maître. Ces individus continuent toujours, contre vents et marées, à piller l'Afrique, à aider le maître à piller l'Afrique.
Après 49 ans d'existence, les voyants peuples du Burkina, du Mali et du Niger constatent, avec beaucoup de regrets, d'amertume et une grande déception, que leur organisation s'est éloignée des idéaux de ses pères fondateurs et du panafricanisme. En outre, la CEDEAO, c'est l'influence de puissances étrangères. Trahissant ses principes fondateurs, est devenue une menace pour ses États membres et ses populations dont elle est censée assurer le bonheur. En effet, l'organisation n'a pas apporté assistance à nos États dans le cadre de notre lutte existentielle contre le terrorisme et l'insécurité. Pire, lorsque ces États ont décidé de prendre leur destin en main, elle a adopté une posture irrationnelle et inacceptable en imposant des sanctions illégitimes, illégales, inhumaines et irresponsables en violation de ses propres textes. Face à cette situation qui perdure, leurs excellences le capitaine Ibrahim Traoré, le colonel Assimi Goïta et le général de brigade Abdourahmane Tchani, respectivement chef d'État du Burkina Faso, de la République du Mali et de la République du Niger, prenant toutes leurs responsabilités devant l'histoire et répondant aux attentes, préoccupations et aspirations de leur population, décident, en toute souveraineté, du retrait sans délai du Burkina Faso, du Mali et du Niger de la communauté économique des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest.
What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank, and today we're going to talk about the situation in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. We're going to talk about Kenya and the protests and what the youth are doing right now in Kenya. And we're going to talk about the positions that Pan-Africans take, right? I want to talk about the position that Pan-Africans take because I'm hearing somebody, and this somebody is Brandon, right? Bucci Bear, people call him that. Pan-African Strikes Back. I'm hearing a position that he has taken, and I don't quite understand it, right? I don't quite understand it. Now, we as Pan-Africans, we are all about self-empowerment, right? Self-empowerment. We're about working with our brothers and sisters, no matter where they are, supporting them in their efforts. We're about that, because they're under the guise that we're all African, even though we're different. We come from different walks of life. We come from different parts of the continent. We have different phenotypes. We have different spiritual systems, even though they're very similar to each other. We have different styles, different dresses, different names, different languages, but we are all Africans, right? And we're supposed to unite because we also have a common enemy. We have a common abusers. We have a common problem. We have common issues, right? All collectively, we have individual problems within our respective locations, but we all collectively have these problems because of the same enemy, the same author of our situations that we find ourselves into, right? And we're supposed to be in an age of information where we're all becoming aware of our plight, the authors of our plight, and the plight of others that look like us, right? We are coming out of our ignorance in the age, in the dawn of age of information. And the age of information has also revealed truths that were hidden from us in the past, right? And we're all collectively trying to gather all that information and organize it. And we're trying to just figure out what we need to throw away and what we need to keep. And that's pretty much where we're at right now, everybody, right? And we're all vigorously fighting over it, right? Passionately and passionately. Everybody has everybody's arguing passionately for the positions that they've taken, right? And so, like everybody else, Brandon has taken this position, which kind of I don't understand, and people around him have taken this position, and they are calling themselves Pan-African and pro-black. So let's talk about the position they've taken. Now, they don't particularly like the fact that these countries in the Sahel have decided to revolt against the systems of the West. The democracy itself of the West, to free themselves from their colonizers. They don't like the method at which they took. They wish they would have did it in a democratic way, because the people, they say, voted the leaders in democratically. Therefore, the change should have happened democratically. That's a proper way a revolution should have been, conducted. Right? So they don't like that. And Brandon has also taken the position that the kids, the youth in Kenya, are wrong in their position, in that they're basically just maybe being sensitive or being spoiled, or they're all wrong. And Ruto is correct. He's taking that position that they're acting out and they're protesting, and protesting has no value, and it's doing nothing but, the same thing position he would take here in America, with protesting and whatnot. The only protest, that he sees as an okay protest was the insurrection on January 6th. But the rest of the protests that happened in America were violent, criminal acts by the citizens. Those are his positions. And keep in mind, he's calling himself a Pan-African, right? And since Pan-Africans were supposed to support each other, right? But he's not supporting the other black people when they're fighting against the common oppressor, simply because they're not utilizing the white Western or the oppressor's infrastructure to achieve that result, right? Now, democracy itself, right, which sometimes which all the time in the West and on purpose gets confused with capitalism, right? They like to marry capitalism and democracy. So that way, when they say America is spreading democracy around the world, what they really mean is America is spreading their capitalism around the world, which they're really saying is America is forcing other markets to open up and allow the multinational corporations that are based in America to access their market and people to compete in their country and compete against their corporations for goods and services, i.e. stealing the money and resources from their country. Seeing how that the West has an overwhelming advantage in that system that they've created because of the 500 years of world destruction and genocide for the world's resources, while creating that infrastructure of capitalism, which has been evolving, ever since, So that's the structure at which, America likes to spread, because the more capitalism, i.e. democracy, is spread around the world, the more the tentacles of the West can reach and suck all the resources. That template is what Brandon, and the people around him who he associates with on the Black YouTube streets, that mechanism is the thing that they believe we should use in order to gain advantage and take back our position on this planet, even though we are the overwhelming underdogs because of the advantage, the leverage that the Europeans have within that structure. Right now, the Pan-African position, the majority position, is we have to do something radical in order to break away from the infrastructure of the oppressor, right? Which is always stylized in movies, right? We always see the rebel having to do something dramatic in order to change the system, right? Like, we know this. It's within our lexicon because we empathize with it in movies when we go and see them. That's usually the storyline of most movies, right? So here we have the definition of Pan-Africanism, which you would think that they would use as an example to show when people say, what's Pan-Africanism doing? They would point to this, like, look, this is young black men, right? We always say our men need to step up. So we have an example of young black men stepping up in the highest offices on the world, and the heads of state, fighting against the European imperialistic powers, right? While simultaneously trying to keep themselves alive, because several terrorist attacks and several assassination attempts have been placed upon them. And when we're talking about the assassination attempt that happened with, on Donald Trump, they're more concerned with the assassination attempt that happened to Donald Trump, right? Who, for all effective purposes, was on the opposite side of Pan-Africanism as far as his ideologies, right? But they don't even care about the assassination attempt on these young black Pan-Africans who are risking their lives to liberate their people in real life, right now, happening now, right? So the ultimate form of Pan-Africanism, in the face of all the corruption other Pan-African groups have had to deal with, we've finally seen some positive results. You would think every Pan-African would be supporting that. And you can hear on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere, all black people, we are all supporting those Pan-African brothers out here fighting that good fight and being inspirations to the rest of the African continent. Because of what they're doing, the rest of the youth of the African continent are on fire. And keep in mind, the youth of the African continent are the mass majority of not just Africa, but of the world. The youth of Africa will inherit the world. They are the future leaders of the world, and they are currently being liberated by these brothers in the Sahel. This is the ultimate form of Pan-Africanism. And thank you, Desicari Desalini, a YouTuber, for reminding us that this is happening. Right? That's why it's important that we get along with our Haitian brothers, because they have the key. They have the French side. We got the English side, and we got to be collaborating. We need to be our videos need to be subtitles in French, just so our Pan-African French brothers can hear what we're saying if they don't speak English, and vice versa. I'm saying that's just something we need to do. But you would think that these Pan-Africans would be on their side, but Brandon is against it because he don't like the way it's being done, because he's comparing it to the other coups in the past, which confuses me. Because if you are educated and you know something about history, you would know that those coups were sponsored by the West and the CIA. Those coups were always against the Pan-African who is trying to liberate them people from oppression. So I don't understand how a person calling themselves a Pan-African would be against this particular coup when this coup is a grassroots coup. These are grassroots coups against the oppressor. This is homegrown, sanctioned by the people themselves. They want this. In order for change to happen, something dramatic needs to happen. Meaning you need to have one or two leaders who's making the decisions. Because the thing is, democracy, not to be confused with capitalism, which is the beast that's killing the world everywhere, no matter where you are. Democracy, the structure of democracy itself is meant for society to move slow. It's balanced so that no dramatic changes can happen in the country. It is an effective form of government when operating in good faith, which our democracy does not. Most democracies do not operate in good faith because capitalism gets in the way, because people are inherently greedy and they bend and they change the rules to fit their own political and financial narratives and interests. Right? So that's why in order for major change, you need what we would call a dictator or a strong man. The problem is all the strong man in the past has been strong men sponsored by capitalism of the West, puppets. So the strong man were strong men not of the people, but of the multinational corporations and their sponsored governments against the people themselves in every country. But I don't understand how this guy don't recognize that this is literally raging against the machine. That's what these black brothers are doing. This is the peak of Pan-Africanism. And it's sparking revolution all over the continent and in other places. That's not in the global South, that they don't like to talk about. Because African people are the most influential people on the planet. African Americans are the most influential African people on the planet. When we do something, it becomes trendy and other people do it too, including revolting against their governments. And right now we have the seed of black power, black men. The definition of Pan-Africanism, liberating themselves. Kenya, showing the definition of black power. Youth, showing African pride. And yet you got Brandon, who's currently in Kenya against the youth, trying to liberate their African selves from their puppet masters and in the West. I just don't get it. While simultaneously dying on every hill, Donald Trump and MAGA decide they want to walk up on. It does not compute. It does not compute. It doesn't make any sense. The revolution will not be televised, but it will be live streamed. And it's being live streamed right now. And I don't understand how anybody who's black could possibly be against these heroes, these inspirational leaders, these heads of state. Do you know right now, because these men have decided to take their country back from the imperialist West, do you know right now they are currently, and this is one of the most amazing things that could possibly happen in the black world, they are currently taking control of their educational system. They're decolonizing their educational system so their boys and their girls can learn African-centered education, African-centered history, so they can be infused with their African pride by learning about African accomplishments, by learning about history through the eyes of Africans, not through the eyes of Europeans, telling the true history of Africa and not the European version of Africa. Do you know that's happening now? Only place in the world. They currently are forming a federation. It will be one of the single most powerful and richest markets in the world. In the world, not in Africa, in the world. They are currently taking control of all, not some, but all of their natural resources. They are taking control of everything through the strategies that they are utilizing. which requires them to be a little strong, which requires them to stop, change, rearrange, and modify the systems which was placed on top of them to exploit them by multinational corporations and the companies and politicians that they sponsor. Those puppets who are also domestically taking advantage of their own people. Everybody's being screwed by these criminals, these multinational criminals who run the world, making everybody hate each other, making everybody afraid of each other. So, while the fight is happening, why would any Pan-African be against that and call themselves a Pan-African? Why would any pro-black, black nationalists, people who call themselves black nationalists, why would they be against it simply because they have to use strongman tactics? Isn't it about time that we had a strong man that was strong for the people? Finally. How is it we're going to use the white Western systems that they've created against them? When we try to do that, people complain. When we try to get involved in politics in their systems, people complain. Finally, Africans doing it the African way. And now these so-called Pan-Africans are complaining. It doesn't make any sense. And they can't articulate why they will be against it, other than they prefer the white Western system over Africans doing it the African way. Which, by the way, we've been doing it the African way longer than there were even a such thing as a white Western system. So, you people in the comment section, you tell me which one of us are which one is a Pan-African? Which position is Pan-African? Which one of these positions coincides with Pan-Africans? Because right now I'm seeing results. Education being radically changed to reprogram our black boys and girls to have pride in themselves and know who they are for real, and not be inundated with white Western propaganda. Control of resources, so when these youths can grow up, they'll have opportunities within their own country to gain and build wealth and create Fortune 500 companies that can compete globally. Taking care of the actual terrorist program, taking care of the actual terrorists that are mulling around in their deserts because of white Western interference in Libya. You see, you guys don't talk about that. How it was the white Western European operation in Libya that armed all these Arabs to move down there, giving West Africa these damn problems in the first goddamn place. That's why I say these people who call themselves pro-black and Pan-African, they say they do their research. They just, as far as they do their research is what, just saying it. They don't get past the first page on Google search. Because you would know the reason why West Africa and the Sahel even has a terrorist problem is because America and France pushed all those people down after destroying and destabilizing Libya. West Africa was doing all right before America and the West came along, messing things up. And yes, Barack Obama was the president at the time. And he was forced to do it because the president is not really the head of the state. He's the head puppet for the multinational corporations that own him because of the system that was created by these criminals that like to spread capitalism around the world disguised as democracy. Anyway, you tell me what position a Pan-African should have. Because the results are the results. We're seeing the results. It's even inspiring other African organizations who feel the pressure of these powerful black Africans who are showing the results of making drastic moves. Is putting the pressure on the rest of the African organizations to start making real moves on their own. Because what Africans do, because we're communal no matter what, when one do it, the rest of us start to do it. Because liberation becomes infectious. And that's what's dangerous about Africans, because once we get focused, once we get inspired, it's game over. Anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.